Your doctor just told you your blood sugar is too high. Maybe they used the word pre-diabetic. Maybe they said insulin resistant. Maybe they handed you a prescription and said come back in 3 months. And somewhere between the waiting room and the car park, a question formed that nobody answered. Why is this happening to me? It's not your fault, because here is what most people are never told in that appointment. The blood sugar is not the root problem. The insulin resistance is not the root problem. The root problem, the thing driving both of them, is a hormone that your doctor almost certainly never mentioned. It is called cortisol, and it is one of the most powerful and least talked about drivers of insulin resistance, one that millions of people have and are never told about. Today, I'm going to show you the exact biological chain that connects cortisol to insulin resistance, and 7 specific things you can do every single day to break that chain without a prescription. Insulin resistance is not a permanent condition, it is a response, and responses can be reversed. Neural Hours exists to give you the science behind what your body is actually doing. The mechanisms most people live their entire lives without understanding, and that rarely get explained in a rushed appointment. If you have been following this channel, you already know about cortisol, the hormone we covered in our first episode. Today we go somewhere new. We go into your blood. And what we find there will change how you think about blood sugar permanently. Before we go any further, drop a comment right now and tell me, have you or someone you love been told your blood sugar is too high, or that you're pre-diabetic or insulin resistant? Just drop a yes or a no, and where you're watching from, I read every single one. And the answers from this community shape exactly what we cover next. Let me give you 60 seconds of biology, because once this mechanism is clear, everything else will land immediately. Insulin is a key. Its job is to unlock the doors of your muscle and fat cells so that glucose from your blood can enter and be used for energy. In a healthy body, this system is efficient. Blood sugar rises after a meal. Insulin is released. The doors open. Glucose enters. Blood sugar falls. Insulin resistance is what happens when the locks stop responding to the key. The insulin is there, the glucose is there, but the door will not open. So glucose builds up in the blood. Your pancreas panics and produces even more insulin trying to force the lock. And over time, the whole system strains and eventually breaks. Now here is the part your doctor most likely never explained. Cortisol, your stress hormone, is one of the most powerful forces that jams those locks. Cortisol raises blood sugar deliberately. It is designed to. In a moment of threat or stress, your body needs fuel fast. So cortisol floods the blood with glucose to power your response. But when cortisol is chronically elevated, from poor sleep, constant eating, processed food, chronic stress, it is flooding your blood with glucose around the clock. And that constant glucose flood is what teaches your cells to stop responding to insulin at all. Cortisol is one of the most powerful and least talked about drivers of insulin resistance, which means reversing insulin resistance starts with addressing cortisol. And here are the 7 ways to do exactly that, starting today. 7 habits, counted from the most straightforward to the one that runs deepest. Stay with me through all 7, because the last one is the most important and the one most people never address. Habit 7, and this one is the simplest swap with the fastest visible impact. Cut liquid calories entirely. Soda and juice spike blood sugar faster than almost any solid food because the sugar enters your bloodstream with nothing to slow it down. No fiber, no protein, no fat, just a direct glucose flood. That glucose flood triggers an insulin spike. The insulin spike triggers a cortisol response, and the cortisol response raises blood sugar again, creating a loop that runs all day long every time you reach for a drink that is not water. Water, black coffee, that is the list. Everything else is asking your blood sugar regulation system to work harder than it should. This one change alone, removing liquid sugar, significantly flattens the daily cortisol and insulin spike cycle within the first week. Habit 6, and this one goes deeper than most nutrition advice explains. Your body does not just respond to ultra-processed food as a source of calories. It responds to it as a mild threat. The additives, the seed oils, the refined carbohydrates, your immune system flags many of these as foreign. That immune activation triggers an inflammatory response, and chronic inflammation activates your stress system, causing both cortisol and blood sugar to rise. Your body treats processed food as a stressor. Cortisol responds accordingly. Whole foods keep both cortisol and insulin stable. The swap sounds simple. The biological impact is enormous. Habit 5. This one goes against everything the snack industry has spent decades telling you. Every time you eat anything, cortisol and insulin both respond. Every single time. If you are eating constantly, grazing, snacking, reaching for something every 2 hours, you are giving your blood sugar system no recovery window at all. Your insulin is elevated almost continuously. An insulin that is chronically elevated is insulin that your cells begin to ignore. 2 to 3 solid meals, long breaks in between, let everything settle. The gaps between meals are not something to fear. They are when your cortisol and insulin both get a chance to fall. And falling cortisol is exactly what your insulin receptors need to begin recovering their sensitivity. Habit 4, and this one directly targets the mechanism cortisol uses to damage your blood sugar regulation. When cortisol is chronically elevated, it does not just raise blood sugar directly, it also breaks down your muscle tissue to convert it into glucose. It eats your muscle for fuel. Less muscle means fewer places for glucose to go when it enters your blood, which means higher blood sugar peaks, which means more insulin required, which means more resistance over time. Protein fights back at every level of this chain. 30 to 50 grams of protein per meal slows digestion and flattens glucose spikes. It preserves and builds muscle tissue, giving your blood sugar more places to go. And it gives cortisol less reason to break down the body it was designed to protect. Prioritize protein at every meal, not as a trend, as a direct countermeasure to what cortisol is doing to your metabolic system. If you're still here, and this is connecting with something you or someone you love has been dealing with, take a second right now and type the number 7 in the comments. It is a small signal that tells me you are watching and genuinely helps this information reach more people who need it. Habit 3, and this is the single most underrated tool for blood sugar control that requires no equipment and no gym membership. A 10 to 15 minute walk after your biggest meal. Here is the mechanism. When you walk, your muscles contract. Contracting muscles pull glucose directly out of the bloodstream and use it for fuel, without needing insulin to open the door first. There is a separate glucose transport pathway that is activated purely by muscle movement. Walking after meals pulls glucose out of your blood without requiring insulin. Multiple studies confirm this, including research published in Nature's Scientific Reports, showing that a 10-minute walk immediately after a meal significantly lowers peak blood glucose compared to rest. And a study in diabetes care found that walking after meals was more effective at controlling daily blood sugar than a single 30-minute walk at any other time of day. 10 minutes after you eat, no gym required. Habit 2, and this one addresses the long-term structural problem that makes insulin resistance so difficult to escape. Cortisol eats muscle for fuel. We have established that. Less muscle means less storage capacity for glucose. Less storage capacity means higher blood sugar. Higher blood sugar means more insulin. More insulin means more resistance. The only thing that reverses this structural damage is building the muscle back. More muscle means more places for glucose to go, which means less insulin needed to manage your blood sugar. Resistance training 3 to 5 times per week. Compound movements. Progressive overload. Lifting heavy enough to challenge the muscle does 2 things simultaneously. It builds the glucose storage capacity your body desperately needs, and it makes your body progressively more resilient to cortisol's muscle-breaking effects over time. You do not need to become an athlete. You need to become someone who lifts consistently. The metabolic difference is significant and measurable within 8 to 12 weeks. And habit 1. The root of everything, the one that makes every other habit on this list either work or fail. Fix your sleep. Here is the chain of events that poor sleep sets in motion every single night. Poor sleep spikes cortisol overnight. Elevated overnight cortisol raises blood sugar because cortisol floods the blood with glucose as a stress response. Raised blood sugar demands more insulin. Chronic insulin demand builds resistance. Repeat that every night for months, for years, and you have insulin resistance that no diet change will fully resolve because the root driver is happening while you sleep. You cannot out-eat bad sleep. You cannot out-exercise bad sleep. 7 to 9 hours. The same schedule every single day, including weekends. And if you want to do one thing that directly targets overnight cortisol, the research on magnesium glycinate is worth knowing. Magnesium glycinate supports the body's ability to regulate cortisol overnight, working through the HPA axis to help bring stress hormones down during sleep. A 2025 randomized controlled trial found that magnesium bisglycinate supplementation improved sleep quality in adults with poor sleep, and multiple studies confirm magnesium's role in supporting healthy cortisol regulation. Fix the sleep, and every other habit on this list becomes twice as effective. Let me bring all 7 together. 7. Cut liquid calories, water and black coffee only. Remove the glucose flood from your drinks. 6. Ditch ultra-processed food. Your body treats it as a stressor. Whole foods keep cortisol and insulin stable. 5. Stop snacking. 2 to 3 meals. Long gaps in between. Give your insulin a chance to fall. 4. 30 to 50 grams of protein per meal. Slow your glucose spikes. Protect your muscle from cortisol. 3. Walk 10 to 15 minutes after your biggest meal. Pull glucose out of your blood without needing insulin to do it. 2. Lift weights 3 to 5 times per week. Build the storage capacity your blood sugar system depends on. 1. Fix your sleep. 7 to 9 hours, same schedule daily, because nothing else on this list works properly if your sleep is producing cortisol surges every single night. Here is what I want you to carry from this. Insulin resistance is one of the most common and most consequential metabolic conditions of our time. Hundreds of millions of people have it, and most of them have been given a partial answer, a medication, a diet change, a carbohydrate limit, without the full biological picture that explains why the problem developed in the first place. Cortisol is the missing piece of that picture. Address the cortisol through sleep, through meal timing, through lifting, through protecting your system from constant spikes, and the insulin resistance begins to reverse. Not because of a drug, because you removed one of the primary things that was causing it. Drop a comment below and tell me, which of these 7 are you starting with? I read every single one. And the answers from this community directly shape what we cover next. If this gave you something your last appointment did not, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Because on this channel, we follow the biology wherever it leads, and we do not stop at the surface. Next week, we go deeper into how your brain age. We're going to look at what causes dementia at old age, how it affects the brain physically, structurally, and over years, and why the mental sharpness most people assume they are losing to age may actually be something far more reversible than anyone ever told them. You will not want to miss that one. You were not given the wrong body. You may just have been given the wrong map. That changes today. I'll see you in the next one.